Hi guys, it's Omer from MMOs.com and I'm doing another quick weekly news recap for all major MMO news and announcements for the week ending October 24th, 2016. This is episode number 66 of the recap, and the first bit of news this week comes from MMOs.com regarding Revelation Online. As announced last week, Revelation Online Closed Beta 1 was set to begin tomorrow, but unfortunately that has been delayed until November 3rd, which is this Thursday. Players can still pre-download the game, but Closed Beta has been delayed a bit. And the reason for the delay is that the quality assurance team discovered some stability issues with the client, and hopefully it should meet its new deadline of November 3rd. And off the top of my head, it's probably the biggest release left for this year, and that's probably true. Next up, some pretty big news from Hi-Rez Studios, the company best known for Smite. They announced a brand new game this week called Smite Tactics, which is a turn-based strategy game based on the Smite franchise that looks like a mix of Duelist and Hearthstone. It's a card-based strategy game that takes place on a square grid, a fairly small grid actually. Closed beta signups have already begun, and it looks like closed beta is set to begin before the year ends. And considering how successful Smite is, this is definitely a big game for Hi-Rez. And given the huge influx of card games since Hearthstone did really well, it's not too surprising to see Hi-Rez embrace the genre as well. Next up, a small bit of news from Perfect World Entertainment regarding Final Fantasy The Awakening. It's actually a mobile MMO being developed by Perfect World, and it's based on the Final Fantasy franchise, more specifically Final Fantasy Type 0. It was announced some time ago that Square Enix and Perfect World will be working together on a mobile MMO based on Final Fantasy Type 0, but we didn't know anything about it back then. Now we know that the game is called Final Fantasy The Awakening. It'll be built on Unity. It'll feature a quote-unquote exciting story, large bosses, and a relationship system. The game is set to launch in China later this year, and there is no Western release date just yet. However, again, Perfect World has been sort of good on embracing the West, so it might come out here later. More importantly, it is worth mentioning that we will see more and more games embrace mobile. Square Enix especially has been embracing mobile quite a bit, as they've been making more and more money through mobile. Too bad this video doesn't show any actual gameplay though, and we'll have to wait to see some of that. And moving right along, we have Gigantic, which just finished its closed beta test this last weekend. It's the first closed beta for Gigantic since Perfect World picked up publishing rights for it. We did a Sunday Funday video for the game already and had some fun with it. It is moving closer and closer towards release. I know it's had a bit of a checkered history, but now it's actually getting closer to release. At least it feels that way. And if you've never heard of Gigantic, it's probably Paragon meets Battlerite. That's probably the best comparison I can think of, because it's a MOBA, but there aren't any minions, and it's a bit of fun and fast-paced, so check it out when it comes out. Up next, we have a new game launching tomorrow into closed beta. We have Mu Legend. That's a big title for WebZen because the Mu franchise is the biggest revenue generator for WebZen, and this is the latest PC installment and finally a successor, hopefully, to the older Mu Online. And to celebrate the game launching into closed beta tomorrow, they did release a new gameplay trailer that you're seeing in the background right now, and it looks a lot like Mu Online, but just an upgraded version, which is great because you don't want them to change the formula too much because it has worked. Expect the first look video relatively soon. Next up, AdventureQuest 3D is now live into open beta. It finally launched, and the really cool thing about AdventureQuest 3D is that it's truly multi-platform, meaning you can play on PC as well as Android and iOS, and it's basically the same exact game. Very few MMORPGs are trying to do this, and it looks like AdventureQuest 3D is one of them. Off the top of my head, the only games that are trying to do this seem to be AdventureQuest 3D now, as well as Albion Online. But yeah, the game is playable, and the text and the dialogue is quite great. But beyond that, it feels like a very simple game on PC, but a really good game on mobile. So if you want to play it, mobile seems to be the way to go. Up next, some pretty big news for United Front Games, the makers of Smash+Grab as well as Sleeping Dogs. And the news is, we talked about it on the podcast earlier, but the news is that the studio behind this, United Front Games, is officially shut down. They disappeared very quickly. In fact, they disappeared during a free weekend for Smash+Grab. So the game clearly didn't save the company, and it was very unfortunate for people that bought the game because it shut down so quickly. Luckily though, they are giving refunds for anyone that purchased Smash+Grab, which makes a lot of sense because the game shut down so quickly. It is unfortunate they shut down, but rest in peace, United Front Games. Moving right along, we have a pretty huge game that just launched into closed beta in South Korea. It's called Dungeon Fighter Spirit. Now, this is pretty big news because Dungeon Fighter Online itself is enormously successful in China, and it actually makes it the highest grossing MMORPG in the world in 2015 and 14. So, Dungeon Fighter Spirit has a lot to live up to, and it is the mobile version of Dungeon Fighter. Now, all we know is that the game features 4 classes: Fighter, Gunner, Slayer, and Wizard, and each of which can advance to other classes. Unfortunately, there is no global release plan just yet, but given how big DFO is and Dungeon Fighter is, I suspect a global release eventually. It is IP blocked as well, so you have to use a VPN to get access to it. But yeah, looking forward to checking this one out myself, hopefully. Again, it's mobile, but I'll try to do a video for it. Move right along, we have a small update from Black Desert Online and introduces horse racing as well as Halloween events to the game. I wanted to mention this because I thought horse racing is a really cool event they could have added. There are a few things I really love in MMORPGs, and I do like an emphasis on stuff outside the core gameplay, which is why I really like Final Fantasy XIV right now, because there's a lot to do besides just the grind, looking pretty, the gold saucer, funny modes, a lot of silly things to do, and I think it's a move in the right direction for Black Desert Online to add some stuff outside of the core gameplay mechanics, and I'm hoping it does well for it. Besides the horse racing, the update itself is live, so you can actually get Halloween cosmetics and other Halloween-themed goodies during the event, which should presumably last from now until Halloween. Next up, an odd bit of news. Mobius Final Fantasy is headed to Steam in November. Yes, Mobius Final Fantasy, the mobile Final Fantasy game, is moving from mobile to Steam. So it's kind of following the footsteps of a game like World of Tanks Blitz, which launched on mobile and later launched on PC. However, this will be Japan exclusive for the time being, with no word on a Western release date. It will be cross-platform compatible too, as the PC version will have much better visuals too. So it is cool to see games moving from mobile to PC. Usually you see PC to mobile, but they go the other way around sometimes as well. But for a port from mobile to PC, the game looks absolutely gorgeous. But again, they did up the graphics a bit for the PC launch. And given how much Square Enix has been focusing on the West, I fully expect this game to launch on PC in the West as well. Moving right along, we have the Beluga Lagoon update for Blade & Soul launching on October 26th, which is on Wednesday. It's not exactly a big update, but it does introduce a new 6v6 map, as well as adds a few events to the game. The most important part of the event, though, is that new legendary soul shields and a new legendary weapon can be earned through the Blue Laguna. Event aside, there's also a new weapon/accessory preview, so you can see the path your weapon will take while upgrading it and evolving it. Not a huge update, but we'll take what we can get. Moving right along, we have a game called Nebula Online, which is leaving Steam Early Access on November 3rd. It's a cross-platform sci-fi MMO. The game is buy-to-play currently in Early Access, and there's no word whether the price will change on release or not. It is worth mentioning, though, the game is pretty dead currently, with 2 players averaging on in the last 30 days, which definitely isn't good, but hopefully it'll pick up at launch, and we'll see where it goes. Up next, more news about mobile games. This time we have Lineage Red Knights. The game was previously announced in Korea only, but now we have an English website for the game for Southeast Asian audiences. Still no North American or European release just yet, but the fact that it's coming out in English in Southeast Asia means that we can probably expect it out in the West as well. Only thing we really know right now is the game will have a chibi and a cute look, unlike previous Lineage games, and that the Korean pre-registrations have already begun, so it is moving towards release. And no gameplay video just yet, just what we're seeing in the background. The next and last bit of news this week comes from Neverwinter, and it's regarding the Neverwinter Storm King update. It finally launches on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One this last week, and that's 2 months after the original release on the PC. And for those that forgot, it adds 3 new adventuring zones to the game, as well as a Tier 3 dungeons and a bunch of balance tweaks to all the characters. It is unfortunate there's still that big gap between the PC launch and the console launch, but I feel like that gap is only gonna narrow as time goes on. But yeah, that's it for MMO News this week. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the podcast. Later, guys.